In this concept, we're going to talk about simplifying algebraic expressions. And simplifying algebraic expressions essentially involves rewriting these expressions in the simplest form. And that can include things like combining like terms, distributing numbers that are outside of parentheses, or algebraic expressions that are outside of parentheses, algebraic terms that are outside of parentheses, etc. Okay, let's look at some rules of multiplying and dividing integers and signed terms first. And these are very important. These you definitely want to memorize and keep in mind, because these will come up all the time when you're solving problems like these. So it's definitely very important to memorize these. Okay, do commit them to memory. If you multiply a negative by a negative, you get a positive. So a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, a positive times a positive is a positive. So positive times positive is positive. Negative times positive is negative. So the only time you get a negative is if the signs are different, right? A negative and a positive multiplied together give you a negative. Whereas if you had two negatives, they're the same, you get a positive answer. If you had two positives, you get a positive answer as well. The same thing is the case for division. So dividing a negative number by a negative number gives you a positive result. Dividing a positive number by a positive number gives you a positive result. Dividing a negative number by a positive, or vice versa, dividing a positive by a negative, the order does not matter. What matters is that one of them is negative and the other is positive. So the signs are different. You end up with a negative result. Let's look at some examples. So minus 2 times minus 3. So again, these two are multiplied and they are of the same sign, which happens to be negative, but it's the same sign. So the result is positive 6. Okay, 2 times 3 is 6. Negative times negative is positive. So it's positive 6. 16 divided by negative 2. So 16 divided by 2 is 8, but divided by negative 2 is negative 8. Okay, because they have different signs, right? This is positive 16, this is minus 2. Minus 15, or negative 15, divided by negative 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5, but you have negative and negative, so the signs are the same, so you get plus 5 as your answer. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. Minus 5, parentheses, minus 2x plus 8 inside the parentheses. And in this case, we would want to use the distributive property, okay, like we discussed in a previous concept. So what that means is I'm going to take the negative 5 and I'm going to distribute it to each of the two terms in the parentheses. So what is that going to give me? Minus 5 times minus 2x, right? So 5 times 2 is 10. And then minus times minus, they cancel out, or I should say they become plus. And then the x just becomes x, right? Because there's nothing else for it. So minus 5 times minus 2x is 10x, positive 10x. Minus 5 times plus 8. So 5 times 8 is 40, and then minus times plus. Again, up here, minus times plus is minus, or negative. So negative 40. So minus 5, and then parentheses, minus 2x plus 8 is equal to 10x minus 40. 2 times parentheses 3 plus 3x minus 6. So again, we can use the distributive property, right? So 2 times 3 and then 2 times 3x. So 2 times 3 is 6. Let's scroll down a little bit. There we go. So 2 times 3 is 6, and then 2 times 3x is 6x, right? And then it's plus, plus, and plus, right? So it's plus 6x, and then after that we have minus 6x by itself. Remember, the 2 only distributes to what's in these parentheses, right? Don't go about, multiplying the 2 by the 6. They have a subtraction between them, not a multiplication like with the parentheses. So always be careful when you distribute like this. So we have 6 plus 6x minus 6x. So look at that. 6x minus 6x is, a term minus itself, and that gives me 0. So I have 6 plus 0, right, which is just 6. Okay. Next example. So 2x and then parentheses, x squared minus x plus 1, close parentheses, minus another pair of parentheses, 2x cubed minus 3x minus 2, etc. So this one is a little bit more involved. There's a lot going on. But again, it's straightforward in the sense that you know the process, right? Start here, for example, you would have to start distributing, right? So distribute the 2x to everything in the pair of parentheses, right? And then also, in this case, you would essentially have to distribute this negative sign, which is essentially negative. It's really -1, right? Because any parentheses, you can assume that it's being multiplied by 1 if it doesn't have anything on the outside. In fact, even if it does have a coefficient on the outside, like here, you can also assume that this coefficient is being multiplied by 1. I mean, this is obvious, right? So in this case, it is as if you had -1 outside, and you want to distribute that -1 also to all these terms. Okay, so what do we get? So 2x times x squared, right? And then 2x times -x, and that gives me, so, I carry the negative sign again. And then 2x times plus 1, so 2x times 1, right? Negative 2x times x, right? And then here minus 1 times 2x cubed, minus 1 times 2x cubed, and then minus 1 times 3x, so minus 1 times -3x, be careful, so minus 1, or -1, outside here, times -3x, right? And then minus 1 times -2, -2. So now we have kind of factored out or multiplied the parentheses by using the distributive property. Now the next step is to combine like terms, right? So we have some terms that are going to have x cubed, some terms that are going to have x squared, some terms that are going to have just an x, some terms are going to be a constant, they're not even going to have a variable with them. So the order of business in this case, at this point, is to rearrange these such that the like terms are combined together. So here we have, so 2x times x cubed is 2x times x squared is 2x cubed, minus 2x times x is 2x squared, right? And then it's minus 2x squared. And then plus 2x times 1 is plus 2x. And then minus 1 times 2x cubed is minus, right, 2x cubed. And then minus 1 times minus 3x is plus 3x. Minus 1 times minus 2 is plus 2. Right? We've basically simplified going from here to here, right? Simplified a little further. Now we can combine like terms. So we have, let me just erase this so it's clear what I'm doing. So now I have 2x cubed and a minus 2x cubed, right? So essentially I have 2x cubed minus 2x cubed, which is itself. So both of these become just 0. So I'm not going to have an x cubed term in the result. Minus 2x squared. Do I have any other term with x squared? I do not. So this is just going to carry over as is, right? So minus 2x squared is right here. And then I have plus 2x. Let me just clear this a little bit again. So here I have plus 2x and then plus 3x. So plus 2x plus 3x is plus 5x. And then the plus 2 has no other constants for it to be paired with, so you just drop it as is again. Okay, so this would be the simplest form for this expression. Okay, 2x minus 3 plus 3x cubed, and then in parentheses 3x cubed minus 10x plus 2 close parentheses. So in this case, again, 2x minus 3 and then plus, this is the same as, plus 1 again, and I can just distribute to all of them, but obviously the plus sign was not going to change any of these signs, right? So if this were positive, the plus sign was going to keep it positive. If this were negative, so plus minus, it's going to be minus. And then plus plus is going to be plus. Right? So I'm going to have, 2x minus 3 and then plus 3x cubed minus 10x plus 2. Now if I combine like terms, I have plus 3x cubed. Let's start with the, the variable with the largest exponent. That is convention. So I have plus 3x cubed. Right, and then I have 2x and minus 10x. So 2 minus 10 is negative 8. So I have negative 8x. Right, so I have plus 3x cubed and then minus 8x. And then I have minus 3, right, and plus 2. Minus 3 plus 2 is minus 1. So again, rearranging it to start with the largest exponent, please keep in mind this is a typo. Okay, this should be plus 3x cubed, right? It is plus 3x cubed. So plus 3x cubed minus 8x minus 1. And this is the final answer. Okay, so we were just talking about simplifying algebraic expressions. Now we're going to look at evaluating algebraic expressions. And evaluating the expressions is essentially simplifying them, then plugging in a certain value for the variables. Okay, or you could plug in the value of the given values of the variables from the very beginning and then simplify. You could do it either way. But it essentially involves getting a specific answer, a specific number, a specific value from the expression, right? So the expression could have multiple terms, but now you're going to plug in for the variables and then you're going to get one value in the end, a single number, etc. Let's look at an example. What is the value of 15x minus, and then absolute value sign, within the absolute value sign, minus x minus 4. And then close absolute value sign, and then plus 2 times parentheses x minus 3. If x is equal to negative 2. So, well, what is the quickest way to solve this? Well, just take the negative 2 for x and then just plug it in, right? Plug it in anywhere you see x, just put in negative 2, right? Okay, so what do we get? So we get 15x, so just plug in negative 2 for x, right? Minus absolute value of negative x. So keep in mind, x is negative 2. But then there's an extra negative sign, so you also have to carry it over. Okay, do not get confused with this. So it's negative of negative 2, right? Because I have negative x, and x by itself, the x part by itself, is negative 2. So negative, negative 2, minus 4, okay, plus 2 times x, which is negative 2 again, and then minus 3. Okay, so all I did in going from here to here is just wherever I saw x, I substituted negative 2. Now that I'm here, I can start to simplify. So let's start with the parentheses, right? Again, order of operations. So let's start with the parentheses. So 15 times negative 2 is negative 30. Minus, and then absolute value. Again, in this case, the absolute value kind of counts as parentheses, right? So you would evaluate what's in it first before moving on. But there's a couple of steps. So first I have the negative 2, and that gives me positive 2 in the end, right? Because it's negative multiplied by negative. Or it's the same as saying negative 1 times negative 2, right? So negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. And then minus 4 plus 2 times negative 2 minus 3. So negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. So now we've kind of gone through one layer of simplification for the parentheses. Now we can go through another layer, right? So minus 30 is just minus 30. No need to simplify it further. And then minus 2 minus 4 is minus 2, but then still carry over the absolute value sign because that's yet another operation that we have to do in a subsequent step. Okay, but do the subtraction first. So you get negative 2 inside the absolute value sign. And then plus so you have 2 times minus 5, or plus 2 times minus 5. Okay, there was a couple of ways to do this. Again, you could say, you could keep this the same, the sign the same, and which is positive, and carry it over, and then say 2 times minus 5 is minus 10 inside the parentheses. Or you could have just said plus 2 times minus 5 gives me minus 10, and did away with this, right? You could have done either process. But in this case, we have plus minus 10. So in the next step, I have minus 30 again, and then minus, and then the absolute value of minus 2, which is 2. So it's minus 30 minus 2 plus minus 10. Or again, plus minus 10 is just minus 10, right? So minus 30 minus 2 is minus 32, and then minus 10 is minus 42. Okay. Evaluate minus 2, parentheses, minus x minus y, when x is 1 and y is 2. So again, the first step is to substitute, right? Substitute for the variables. So wherever I see x, I'm going to substitute 1. Whenever I see y, I'm going to substitute 2. So I'm going to have minus 2 and then parentheses minus 1 minus 2, right? Because x is 1 and y is 2. And then just carry over the negative signs as is in this case. This one and this one. Now here, again, order of operations says I should do the parentheses first. Evaluate what's inside the parentheses first. Right? So minus 1 minus 2 is minus 3. And then it's multiplied by minus 2 still. Okay? Now, minus 2 times minus 3, minus times minus is plus, so it's plus 6. Let's look at some exercises. Please pause the video, try to work on these, and come back for the solutions. Okay, so here we want to simplify the following expressions. So just write it in the simplest form. So what do we have? We have minus 2x minus 3 times parentheses 2 minus 5, close parentheses, plus x. So order of operations, again, tells me I should evaluate the parentheses first. So 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Okay, and it's still multiplied by negative 3 and added to x, and then minus 2x. Okay, now, again, I could, evaluate these two terms also, just to get rid of the parentheses. So minus 3 and times minus 3. So that's equal to plus 9, right? And then the plus x carries over, and the minus 2x carries over. In the next step, I want to combine like terms so that I can simplify further. So minus 2x plus x, so minus 2x plus x, right, plus 9. Remember, I could do that. I can rearrange because of the addition, this addition. Okay? This addition. So minus 2x plus x is minus x plus 9. And this is the answer. Three x times parentheses x plus 2x squared plus 1 minus another pair of parentheses 8x squared plus x. So here I have to use the distributive property, right? So distribute the 3x to the x, and then distribute the 3x to the 2x squared, then distribute the 3x to the 1. And then subtract, and then actually, again, this is the equivalent of minus 1 times that pair of parentheses. So I want to distribute this also before writing these two terms outside of the parentheses. Okay, so what am I going to have? So I'm going to have 3x squared, right? So 3x times x is 3x squared, plus 3x times 2x squared times plus 2x squared, right? So 3 times 2 is 6, and then x times x squared is x cubed, and then 3x times plus 1 is plus just 3x. Right? And then I have minus 1 times 8x squared is minus 8x squared. Then I have minus 1 times plus x is just minus x. Now I would like to combine like terms. So again, go by convention and start from the variable with the largest exponent. So write this first, right? So write 6x cubed, so this equals, right, 6x cubed, and then I have 3x squared minus 8x squared. So 3 minus 8 is negative 5x squared. And then I have plus 3x, right? Plus 3x minus x. So plus 3 minus 1, right? 1x. So plus 3 minus 1 is plus 2x. And this is my simplest form. Okay. In these exercises, we would like to evaluate as opposed to just simplify. Okay. So try to work on these. Again, pause the video, work on these, and come back for the solutions. Okay, let's look at these together now. So x minus y, absolute value, right, minus absolute value of minus x minus y, with x equal to 1 and y equal to negative 1. So very straightforward. Wherever I see x, I'm going to plug in 1, right? So 1 is going to go here. Well, I didn't point properly. 1 is going to go here, and it's also going to go here, right? And negative 1 is going to go here, and it's also going to go here. So what do I have? I'm going to have absolute value of 1 minus, and then negative 1 in parentheses, right? So remember, or I'm sorry, this is absolute value. Okay, so remember the fact that we have a negative sign, and then the y is actually a negative number. So you have to carry over both negative signs. And then minus, right, which is this negative sign, absolute value of minus x, which is 1, minus, and then y, which is minus 1. Okay, what does this give us? So 1 minus negative 1, so minus times negative times negative, right, is positive. So this is the same as 1 plus 1, absolute value. Minus, and then I have minus 1, and then again, negative times negative, right, this is plus 1. What does that give me? So, actually, let's continue up here. So 1 plus 1 is 2, absolute value, minus negative 1 plus 1 is just 0, right? Because it's the same as 1 plus 1 minus 1, which is 0. Okay, so 0, which equals just 2, right? Absolute value of 2 is 2, and then 0 is just 0. Next example, minus 5x plus 2x squared minus 3x squared if x is negative 1. So again, look at where the x's are located and just plug in negative 1. So what do we have? Minus 5 times negative 1 plus 2 times negative 1 squared minus 3 times negative 1 squared. And what does that give me? So minus 5 times minus 1 is plus 5. Plus negative 1 squared is, so this is the same as negative 1 times negative 1, which gives me positive 1. So this is the same as saying 2 times plus 1, which is just plus 2. Right? Here we have minus 3 times negative 1 squared. So again, negative 1 squared is the same as plus 1. So it's minus 3 times plus 1 is just minus 3. Right? And what does this give me? 5 plus 2 is 7. 7 minus 3 gives me 7 minus 3 gives me 4. Okay, minus 3x times parentheses minus x squared plus x minus 1 if x is equal to 2. So again, wherever you see x, plug in 2. So what does it give me? Minus 3 times 2, and then parentheses, minus 2 squared. Okay, you have to keep the minus sign outside the square here. Plus, plus 2, right? X is 2, I'm sorry. Plus 2 minus 1. And that equals, so minus 3 times plus 2 is minus 6, parentheses, 2 squared. In this case, you would do the exponent first before the multiplication by the negative sign. So remember, the mnemonic for order of operations is PEMDAS, right? So I have an exponent before I have the multiplication. So the negative sign here is essentially multiplication, right? Because again, it's just like saying minus 1 times whatever's in the parentheses. So in this case, I would evaluate the exponent first, which is 2 squared, which gives me 4. And then I can multiply it by the negative 1, so it's negative 4. Plus 2 minus 1. So what does this give me? So minus 6 times minus 4 plus 2 is minus 2. Minus 1. So minus 4 plus 2 is minus 2. Minus 2 minus 1 is minus 3. So it's negative 6 times negative 3. Right? And that gives me 18. Because both negative signs cancel out, right? Or they give me a positive value. Okay, they don't really cancel out. We say that, symbolically, but they really multiply to give you a positive. So the final answer is 18. Okay, x squared times y squared minus x cubed plus y cubed plus 8, with x equal to 3 and y equal to negative 2. So let's just plug in, right? So wherever you see x, just put 3. So 3 squared, and wherever you see y, just put negative 2. So a negative 2 squared minus 3 cubed plus negative 2 cubed. plus 8. Okay, now start evaluating all the exponents. So 3 squared is 9. Minus 2 squared is plus 4. Minus 3 cubed is 27. Right, so 3, this is the same as 3 times 3 times 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. Plus, right, we're here now, minus 2 cubed. So plus 2 cubed is 8. Minus 2 cubed is minus 8, right? So whereas the square of something, okay, is always a positive number, even if that something is a negative number, right? So minus 2 squared is 4, but minus 2 cubed, a cubic number, the cube of a number, if it's negative, if that number is negative, the cube gives you a negative result, right? So the cube of negative 2 is negative 8 plus 8. So what does this give me? 9 times 4 is 36 minus 27. And then, plus negative 8 is just minus 8 plus 8. And look at that. Minus 8 plus 8, that just gives me 0, right? Same number, different signs. So I end up with 36 minus 27, which is equal to 9. Okay, I hope this was clear. This is it for this concept. See you in the next video.